Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven, and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have some malicious compliance stories, and our first story of the day is by username Tim. My boss used me for malicious compliance 5 years ago, and I just figured it out. About 5 years ago, I was the office guy for a small lumber mill. My direct supervisor was the general manager, but the owner was also pretty hands-on. The mill wasn't generating as much profit as the owner believed it could. He was probably right. The guy was as smart as a whip with 60+ years of experience. One of the things the owner tried to do was hire an outside consultant to try and find ways we could safely increase productivity or cut expenses. The guy had owned and operated his own mill and also had a ludicrous amount of experience. One of the things the consultant had been pushing for was running the mill into overtime. He thought we could increase productivity without incurring more expense than we gained. My boss asked me to run an analysis of how much we would gain or lose if we ran overtime. I did the math and gave him the results. Even in the best case, every minute of overtime would result in a net loss to the company. The report had taken me several hours as I wanted to be sure I gave him the right answer. My boss took it, nodded, and the next day announced we would be running the mill in overtime. 2 weeks later, when I prepared the end-of-month financial statements, it showed a large loss. I was quietly seething since I felt like I had been asked a pointless question, my time wasted, and my input ignored. But looking back on it with significantly more experience, I think I know what happened. I think my boss was bothered by the consultant who had come in to tell him how to do his job and then given him bad advice. The owner wouldn't listen to my boss, telling him he didn't need a consultant, so he did exactly what the consultant suggested and let the owner judge for himself. As far as my report went, I think he just wanted to be sure it wouldn't cost us too much when he pulled the trigger. Tom, if you're reading this, I'm sorry I was resentful about the whole affair for the past 5 years. My bad. Do you think it's better to learn by consultation and asking for opinions, or rather a more trial-by-fire kind of way and making changes or tweaks or decisions by yourself and learning from the consequences of those actions? Let me know which one you think is better for learning and improving in the comments down below. Our next story is by Bonner Power. Can't leave till the plate is clean? Yes, sir. This happened a long time ago when I, 30-year-old female, was just a wee one. I'll start off by saying my dad isn't a great cook. He has a unique talent when it comes to cooking. He can somehow burn something on the outside and leave it frozen on the inside. Needless to say, he wasn't often the one making meals for me and my brother. I should also note that I'm not a picky eater. I love food, but I do have an extremely sensitive sense of smell and taste. I immediately know when something tastes off. I have an especially hard time with reheated chicken, and especially when heated in the microwave. To me, pre-cooked microwave chicken tastes like what a wet dog smells like. On to the story. One night when I was 8 or 9, my mom had a board meeting and tasked my dad with making us dinner. When he realized there weren't leftovers from the night before, he pulled out a box of frozen chicken cordon bleu from Costco. The oven takes too long, so he nuked them in the microwave. They were soggy and the meat inside was a little gray. I took one bite and decided that's a nope for me. I tried to negotiate an alternative, but he wasn't having it. My dad is a stubborn person, really stubborn, but the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. He gives me an ultimatum. You will not leave this table until you eat every single bite. No alternatives, that's the deal. Cue malicious compliance. I ask if I'm allowed to at least use the bathroom. He says yes, so I head downstairs to the kids' bathroom and oh, what do you know? My sleeping bag is sitting right next to the bathroom door. I do my thing and head back upstairs. My dad is reading in the living room at this point and doesn't see me sneak back to the table with my sleeping bag. I sit back down on my spot and put the bag under the table. My dad periodically checks in on my progress, of which I make none. This goes on until he's ready for bed. He reminds me I can't leave the table till I've cleaned my plate. I say, yes, sir. He heads upstairs and I set up camp under the table. When my mom got home, she asked what I was doing and I filled her in. She thought it was hysterical, got me my jammies and went to bed. She must not have told my dad because when he came down in the morning and saw my untouched plate, he was visibly annoyed. That's when I poked my head out to say, "Morning, Dad, I haven't left the table." The look on his face was priceless. Of course, the food can't be eaten now, so he tosses it in the trash and tells me to go get ready for school. When I head back upstairs, I see my dad has made the one thing he can cook really well, French toast. He hands me my plate with a smile and says, "I've never been more proud." I kind of feel personally called out here. I'm a big fan of chicken cordon bleu, and being able to pop it in the microwave and run it for 5 to 7 minutes or whatnot, a lot better than having to run it for 30 plus in the actual oven, even though you're really not supposed to. This next story is by Sapphira Storm. Service level agreement fulfilled properly. Our favorite in-house customer has always been a pain in the butt, overcome by his own subjective importance, expecting instant solutions regardless of other commitments or severity/complexity. He is always quick to criticize our department, his own team is always blameless, and no negative feedback equals glowing praise, but is really rare. But keep in mind, he is not running anything related to the actual operations/business side of the company. This has been going on for years, but apparently he now has a new regional VP to report to, and we got the distinct impression he wants to impress his new boss by showing those pesky guys in tech support who's boss. Last week, he escalated a minor problem in a non-operational training system because it took us 11 minutes from the first phone call until the problem was solved. Or, in his words, an unacceptable and unprofessional non-performance. When we received word of the rocket he had sent via his manager to our boss, we were a tiny little bit irritated. And it took us all of 30 seconds to agree to serve him following the terms of the service level agreement exactly for future calls. Reaction time from first notification to the beginning of a qualified response is defined as 2 hours, with no upper hard limit for an actual solution, only best effort. Today, we had a really nice day at work, with an emergency ticket from said pain in the butt at 0700, and a second call for the same topic at 710, and so on. Getting more and more frantic and escalating with an email distribution list of more and more important people, which we ignored, and when we went to solve his problem at 8:50, it took us about 2 minutes to fix, restart application software as his team has been trained to do. Ticket was then closed, with that huge distribution list attached, as problem solved within service level agreement, user error, and it left him, not us, with egg on the face. I'm looking forward to his next trouble ticket. Maybe he is able to learn. I think all's fair in war in this situation. If somebody's going to go and try and throw you under the bus to make themselves look better to a higher up, returning fire in a more effective way, that's only fair in my opinion. Our next story is by OGunquit2823, Disingenuous. I worked for a franchise cleaning company a few years ago. I had been there as a route manager for a little over 2 years when this happened. I built quite a customer base, people who requested only me and my one other team member to clean their homes, and to this day, the top 5-star reviews on Google for this company have my name in them. I prided myself on being one of the absolute best. It was back-breaking work. We cleaned ceiling to floor. We worked 10 to 12-hour days, but only got paid for maybe half that time, since we didn't get paid for drive time. We were supposed to work in one county, but she sent us across 3, so drive time was plentiful. We may have 3 or 4 cleans in 10 to 12 hours. The rest was spent in the car. We earned a percentage of the total cost of each clean before they added sales tax, and we earned a weekly bonus and added 2% if we hadn't called off sick, we hadn't broken anything, and there were no cancellations or complaints on your route. Now, a customer could have passed away, moved, etc., If they canceled service for any reason, we were berated and lost our bonus. I'm sorry Mr. Smith died, boss, therefore no longer needing us. I'll try to do better next time. Our bosses, the franchise owners, were a husband and wife team who should have divorced a long time ago. He was abusive and enjoyed screaming at us during our morning meetings, and on one occasion had gotten so angry that he picked up a $900 vacuum and threw it at a wall, smashing it into pieces. She pretended she was a meek, God-fearing woman, but she enjoyed doing things like making up fake customer complaints or saying a customer called and said we broke something so she could yank our bonus for the week and pocket more profit. She forgot I had a great relationship with all of my customers. So when she started pulling that with me, I approached my customers at their next scheduled clean to profusely apologize and try to make it right. My customers looked at me dumbfounded and said things like, "Huh? What are you talking about? I never called to complain. When your boss called us, we told her everything was beautiful, as always." So boss was stealing from me. I finally had enough when I came down with strep throat. I worked sick Monday and Tuesday, but by Wednesday, I couldn't speak. Called off Wednesday and Thursday, the first days I'd missed in over a year, but was back on Friday, better thanks to amoxicillin. That morning, tucked in each envelope with the entire staff's paper checks, didn't offer direct deposit, was a note from Tyrant Man Boss that read, "I am too stupid to know when your excuse to call off work is disingenuous," essentially calling me a liar to the whole staff. I was the only call off that pay period. I fumed all day at each clean, deciding what my next move would be. I fumed all weekend. Monday morning, an hour before their arrival, I called and left a message on the answering machine saying something along the lines of, "Since you're too stupid to know much, I quit. Do not call me. Mail me my last check." I also rattled off customers' names who told me about the fake complaints and how I knew they were stealing from me. I warned them that they would lose customers since I quit, and once my 6-month non-compete expired, they would lose more. And since they were too stupid to realize we weren't stupid, I made things crystal clear. All in all, they lost around 12 customers after I quit, including the ones I poached and clean independently now. Hope that arrogance and extra 2% was worth it. I mean, I think this just goes to show you that if you treat your employees like crap, it'll come back to bite you in the butt, one way or another. And our final story of the day is by Lopsided Buyer Zero, School Days Off. My high school was a decent size and overall, I passed through without issue. In my first year, I ended up getting detention for being late to class. I felt this was not right as detention for me meant I would miss the bus and be required to walk home as I had no ride. I just chose to ignore the detention and go about my day. The detention comes and I do not show up, and the next day I get sent to the principal's office. I explain it to him, and he says I have to serve detention and not having a ride home is not an excuse. I ask what would happen if I did not show up, and he said I would be suspended. My mom was very hands-off when it came to school. I knew she would have zero problems with me getting suspended. The detention date rolls around and I do not show up again. Next day, I get sent to the principal's office and am given a final warning to show up to the next one. I did not and got suspended for 3 days. As a teenager, being allowed to stay home with the school's permission was great. The biggest downside of being suspended is that I was not able to turn in any homework or redo any test that was done during those 3 days. If no major assignments or tests were during those 3 days period, then being suspended had nearly no demerits in my mind. I now had an easy way to take a mini vacation from school if I planned it ahead of time. Over the next year, I got suspended 3 more times for not attending detention I purposely got. I made sure nothing important was going on during the days I was suspended ahead of time, and my attendance was good enough to still pass the grade. The last time I got suspended, I was in the principal's office and he was frustrated that I never learned. I told him I did learn the first time that as long as I got detention, I would get a 3-day vacation with basically no demerit. He froze and, with a shocked expression, asked what I meant, and I explained my point of view. Those days of being suspended all came when I had a reason why I would rather stay home. Hot weather as the school had no AC, game release, etc. He excused me and I went my way. My second year of high school, I tried the same. I got detention and skipped it, but soon found out the new policy was no longer suspending students who did not show up for their detention, and instead they got in-school suspension. I still abused it, but only when I wanted in-school suspension. I guess it just really informs you that if you're going to try and punish somebody, you need to make sure that the punishment actually punishes the person. Usually suspension is bad because the parents, understandably get upset over that kind of a thing. But yeah, if they don't, it's kind of like a free vacation. I'm kind of surprised they didn't do the in-school suspension thing earlier. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.